Hey, welcome to another Rust and WebAssembly working group meeting. Uh, yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I forgot to file the issue about the meeting, so kind of small roster today, but um, let's hop into it. So there are no new RFCs, but we are kind of getting closer to our self-imposed deadline for the 2019 roadmap RFC. So I'm probably gonna. There's one last edit I'd like to make to it, and then I think I'll probably call for a final comment period. So if anyone has opinions, uh, we're getting down to the time where you should be sharing those opinions. Um, Status updates, WASM BindGen. We've had some big news and some annoying bug. So the big news is that Alex ported the kind of all of our WASM transformations and intrinsic rewriting and everything to Walrus, which is a crate that is designed for WASM to WASM transformations. And the idea is that it doesn't yet, but it will eventually preserve debug info, which will help our debugging story, obviously. So yeah, nice job. The less happy news is, I guess you're saying it's the introduction of the productions custom section or producers custom section. There's a bug where Webpack is not liking WASM BindGen's output anymore.
I'll link it in the agenda.
Yeah.
But it looks like it was just decoding the custom section of the. It could because we already actually emitted the producers section, and presumably the addition of Walrus in there maybe changed a little bit, or like it's just enough different that it's causing problems.
Hmm. Okay, but yeah, I've been a bit surprised by like how many people have filed bugs about this not working, because I had no idea this many people were like using our stuff. um, yeah, so it was like I don't know. I think we got like 5 or 6 bugs like immediately, pretty much, and they're still coming in. So it's good that we have this fixed, and should be shipping the fix soon.
I think
Uh,
so. Sven has a fix for Webpack like committed, but I think that he just mentioned on IRC that Webpack is at a conference, and so it might take a second to get it published or pushed out 10 p.m., but it's certainly on the way.
mm. And yeah, I guess we don't really have like something we can tell people to do in the meantime, do we?
I think what I'm going to do is add a flag to WasmBindGen to disable the producer section, and then we can try and figure out how to get that into WasmPack as well. I think it's a flaggable one anyway, because people want to, like, we already have a flag to turn off the name section, and so if we can figure out how to get, if you can figure out how to invoke that, that'll fix the bug for now.
Yeah,
It's not a great solution though, not a great patch that is, or band-aid.
yeah. I mean, it's something we want anyway, as you said. But yeah, I wish we could just say like hard code this version and everything will work. Um, well, I guess if we hard code O2 or O234, would that solve the problem for people?
I guess so. It's kind of unclear to me when the Webpack bug came out. Like, I'm not sure if there was an update which is just totally broken with the producer section, or if it's because we changed producer sections that it's causing issues. But actually, what I'm thinking of doing is we should probably just publish a release of WasmBindGen that by default deletes the producer section, and then as soon as this is published at npm, then we can switch
Mm-hmm.
that default back to publishing it by default.
Cool. Okay, that sounds like a plan. Any other Wasm Bindgen updates?
We've actually had a couple of small PRs here and there. We had so there was one for adding some broken WebIDL to well, we aggressively deleted some web IDL, but ended up actually needed to keep it because it was just misannotated. There was a mild optimization added for reflect, where if you're getting an integer indice, you don't have to round trip through a JS value, and so it's a little bit less of a shim there. Oh, and then Nick, you landed the thing, which is Python's simple HTTP server will annoyingly not set the MIME type for WASM files, which means that you can't use it with instantiate streaming. And so Nick has now landed a fix in WASM bindgen to say, well, even if instantiate streaming exists, if it doesn't work, we're going to fall back to instantiate. So we'll still work, just print a nice warning on the console saying like, hey, your server isn't doing the right thing. And so that should get some nice demos, like any initial usage, even if you're using Python's web server up and running much more quickly.
Right. I remember that was like a big thing, like, I don't know, almost a year ago probably, where like we were arguing about like which local server to recommend, and like everyone's used to Python-m simple HTTP server, but it doesn't work with instantiate streaming and yada yada yada.
I actually ran into that exact bug just like a week ago or so, and then did a small workaround. We should totally have like a Rust alternative that somebody can just install from Cargo or from Crates.io and just fire up the server.
So,
I was thinking about setting on that path, but I was like, I don't know if I want to commit to that quite yet.
it does exist already, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can do, Cargo install HTTPS, or is it just HTTP?
HTTP.
Yeah, it's like host these things, please. And yeah, and so that actually does the WASM MIME type correctly.
Nice. Okay. Very cool.
I think the installed command is literally just HTTPS, and so you just go into a directory and type HTTPS, and that's it. And it just starts serving stuff.
All right. WASM pack updates. I don't know of anything. I don't know if anything landed this week. All right, we'll skip it. Bundlers and template updates. I think the big thing was that Webpack bug. Do you know of any other updates, Sindila?
Nope, I'm also talking with the guys. I just talked with Sven, and he said like we are waiting for the merge to happen. I think it may happen in an hour or so, but I'll try to reach out the guys there.
Cool. And no docs updates. So yeah, anything else? Any working group agenda items anyone would like to talk about? We released a new This Week in Rust and WebAssembly yesterday. If anyone missed that, you can catch up on like more like the last 2 months. But yeah, this week.
Yeah, I did had a look into it, and probably if you guys have time to discuss this, we can also discuss the generator app that I was talking about. And there was a WASM app generator. I think it's included in the This Week in Rust this edition. So probably you guys can give it a try. It's not updated. I just went for a vacation and came back, so it's not updated. It's not up to the latest build, but I hope I can also move this thing inside Rust WASM repo. So if we can do it, so we can start doing that stuff and start doing with that.
All right. Does anyone have experience with Yeoman? Because this is a Yeoman thing, right?
It's kind of, okay, it uses Yeoman in the backend, but it's just another CLI tool with JavaScript. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, so if anyone has experience with like JavaScript scaffolding tooling and stuff, your experience would be valuable for testing this out. All right. Anything else, or should we move to office hours? which also doesn't have any questions.
Do you want to briefly cover some of the stuff that we talked about during the work week?
Yeah. Yeah, so for the folks who were not at the Rust All Hands in Berlin, Ashley, myself, Alex, and Yash were there. And we talked about a few things. The notes are linked from the This Week in Rust and WebAssembly post that went out yesterday. But we talked about trying to plan for 1.0 of WasmPack and kind of what do we, like feature-wise, what do we want to include in the 1.0, which shouldn't be a surprise for anyone. It's pretty much what's laid out in the roadmap. And then the other thing we talked about was like, we kind of had this long-standing issue of like piping the files doesn't work super well, and like output on non-fully featured terminals doesn't work super well, and just like kind of like even deciding whether to print something or not was like, you know, we kind of had been kicking that can down the road. And so we kind of sat down and came up with a plan for just like a general philosophy of like what the interaction with WasmPack should look like when things should be printed or not, all of these sorts of things. So definitely look over that. I think we ended up coming to agreement on something that is pretty nice. What else did we talk about? Talked about multi-threading, how to turn our experimental multi-threading support into something we can, you know, use as a foundation for the whole ecosystem, into like a real library instead of a, you know, kind of an experiment. And also we talked with Josh Stone from the Rayon team about how to get Rayon working on top of this. And the plan there is basically, there's some complications with the main thread. Read Alex's post if you want to learn more about those complications. But basically, you won't be able to just do like, you know, Rayon pair iter, like pair for each or whatever. You'll have to kind of submit that work to the off main thread Rayon worker pool, and then kind of get the result as a future, because the main thread can't block is the thing here. But it should be we should be able to make that work really well. What else do we talk about? We talked about cargo build hooks. So like, you know, super long term, like, you know, out past WasmPack 1.0, we would like building a WASM library to be the exact same as building a Rust library, where you literally just type cargo build and that's it. And of course, the reason we have WasmPack is because we do all of this extra stuff after, you know, cargo/rustc/LLVM emits a WASM file. And so that's things like generate bindings, run WASMopt, what have you, generate package JSON. And so this was kind of about like, can we design some sort of like hooks or tasks or like a post build RS into cargo, such that WasmPack can kind of be an implementation of those hooks, so that you still just type cargo build, and then cargo will automatically kind of invoke the relevant WasmPack hooks. And then like embedded people are very interested in this as well, because they have similar kinds of like things that they need to do after rustc emits an ELF binary. And I think we got a plan that is maybe a minimal thing that we can do to like unblock this, but there's more questions here, and it's just such a large design space. So I'd say things are less firm in that area.
Yeah, this was pretty early days. I'd actually be surprised if we got something in Cargo by the end of the year for this, especially given Cargo's own plans for stuff.
Yeah, but it's also the kind of thing that like, if we want WasmPack to be an implementation of these hooks in like 2 years, then we have to start like doing the planning for the cargo bits soon.
Right.
Yeah. What was the last one?
The modular toolkit for WASM.
Yes, right. So we've been talking a lot about a modular Tide-like toolkit that came up in multiple REST-WASM 2019 posts and the roadmap, everything. And this was kind of just trying to figure out, like, what exactly does that mean? What kind of things would be included? And taking a lot of like looks at kind of similarly designed toolkits from JS. For example, Yosh has this project called Chew. And yeah, so that was nice. And I think we have a good plan. Kind of divided libraries up into things that are opinionated or not. And I think at least initially, we definitely want to focus only on unopinionated things like, for example, a library that gives you set timeout or set interval. But instead of using like JSys function and like WASM bind gen closure stuff, it just uses futures, just like a little bit rustier, but it's not really like, opinionated. Whereas like on the opinionated end is like web components and virtual DOMs and all of these things. And to the extent at which the toolkit will encompass those opinionated things, I think we want to focus more on just having traits and interfaces that you can use to like plug different ones in, and not so much on like trying to bless a particular, like this is the virtual DOM library or something, right? We'd rather have a garden that blossoms many flowers. Yeah.
So something that comes to mind that I wanted to toss at you real quick is in the embedded space. Jorge, I think his last name is Paricio. I don't remember what his last name is, but they have a similar setup with the embedded HAL system where you have device crates and then you have the hardware abstraction layer crates, and actually just a single hardware abstraction layer crate essentially that provides traits. And then when you build a specific HAL crate for, device X, Y, or Z, you essentially just implement those traits. So that's a really great idea because, obviously we've been using Tide as an example, but that's another example of kind of a pattern that's already at play there. So not sure if you guys have seen that at all, but it came to mind when you were saying that. So figured I would toss it out there.
Yeah, I think it works really well for them. And like, I don't know, the experience of doing like the embedded stuff with their interfaces is like so much better than kind of the equivalent in C or something. So they've done a really nice job with that. So yeah, like, and none of this is like, set in stone or like already designed or anything, but this is kind of just like trying to get to a place where, probably the next step will be trying to merge the RFC roadmap. And then once we've agreed upon that, like creating a space where we can all come together to do the design and the discussion, and kind of figure things out together. That's basically where we're going. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll be able to really start making forward progress on that. So yeah, that's what happened at the All Hands in Berlin. Anyone want to talk about anything else? We have a bit of time. I can't really see how much time is left on my video meeting, but
Nothing else comes to mind for me.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. Hopefully next week I'll actually remember to file an issue about the meeting, and we'll have a little bit more turnout. Yeah. All right. Thanks for coming out, y'all, and hope you have a good week.
Cool. You as well. See you later, guys.
Bye.
See you later, guys. Bye-bye.